Somewhere in Papua New Guinea right now, a teenage boy is being held down while his skin is into hundreds of raised scars, crocodile scales, cut one by one, because without them, no woman will look at him twice. In a small village in Ethiopia, a man is sprinting at full speed while a crowd of women strike him with wooden switches. He has to keep running. Stopping means he loses everything. And in a dating app server farm in San Francisco, 17 million people are swiping left in the dark, alone, wondering why it's not working. We didn't leave the animal kingdom, we just gave it Wi-Fi and worse instincts. Across every culture, every continent, every era, humans have developed courtship rituals so bizarre, so brutal, and so deeply strange that the anglerfish starts to look like a reasonable romantic partner. Today, we're counting down 20 of the wildest human mating rituals on the planet. Ancient and modern, tribal and digital, sacred and absolutely unhinged.
Most people in the West would regard it as extremely strange to actually build a hut to enable our teenagers to go and have sex.
Fair warning, some of these involve real pain, some involve elaborate deception, and at least one involves a phone notification at 2 a.m. that just says, "Nature is nature, even when it wears clothes." If this is your first time here, welcome. We go deep on the most fascinating and disturbing corners of human behavior every week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Now let's get into the countdown. Number 20, the Roman Lupercalia Festival. Before Valentine's Day was heart-shaped chocolate boxes and awkward dinner reservations, the Romans had something considerably more chaotic going on in February. The Lupercalia Festival, celebrated every February 15th for centuries, began with priests called Luperci sacrificing goats and a dog at a sacred cave on the Palatine Hill. So far, standard ancient Rome stuff. But then things escalated. The priests cut strips of hide from the sacrificed goats, called februa, and ran ceremonially through the streets of Rome, striking everyone they encountered with these strips of hide. Women didn't run, they lined up. Being struck by the februa was believed to guarantee fertility and easy childbirth. So Roman women actively sought out the priests mid-sprint, presenting themselves willingly, believing it was the most beneficial thing that could happen to them in the entire year. The festival also involved a lottery. Young women's names were placed in a box. Men drew names. Whoever you drew, you were paired with for the duration of the festival, sometimes longer, sometimes leading to actual marriage. A blood lottery with a ritual-marking bonus. When Christianity rose to dominance, the church made repeated attempts to abolish Lupercalia. It proved remarkably difficult. Romans were deeply attached to their chaotic February tradition. Pope Gelasius I finally banned it in 494 AD, replacing it with the feast of St. Valentine. He softened the ritual. He kept the romantic pairing concept. Every heart-shaped box of chocolates is, at some level, a sanitized Roman goat hide lottery. Sleep well. Number 19, the Gerewol of the Wodaabe, Niger. Most courtship competition in the animal kingdom is female observation of male display. Usually, the males strut, the females judge. Simple enough. The Wodaabe people of Niger have this system too, but they've taken it to a level that makes peacocks look underprepared. The men spend hours applying elaborate yellow and red face paint, dress in their finest clothing, line up shoulder to shoulder, and perform the yake, a dance where they roll their eyes dramatically, flash their teeth, and hold their faces in the most aesthetically striking expressions they can manage, for hours without stopping. The goal is to display the features Wodaabe culture considers most attractive in men. White teeth, the whites of the eyes, tall, slender frames. The eye rolling and teeth showing isn't vanity. It's a precise display of the genetic markers the culture has determined signal health and vitality. The judges? Women. Specifically, women who walk down the line of performing men, look each one in the face, and point at the one they want. Here's the catch. Women who are already married can still participate, and men who are already married can still be selected. The Wodaabe practice a form of partnership that allows for these festival arrangements, meaning the Gerewol can and does result in new romantic commitments regardless of existing ones. The most beautiful man at Gerewol doesn't just win admiration, he can leave the festival with a new partner. Meanwhile, the man who didn't make the cut goes home, rubs off the face paint, and waits another year. A beauty pageant judged by committee, with stakes that couldn't be higher. The Wodaabe understood the energy of a reality dating show about 400 years before television existed. Number 18. The Satere-Mawe bullet ant gloves, Brazil. Here is a simple question. How do you prove to a woman that you are worth having children with? The Satere-Mawe people of the Brazilian Amazon have a specific answer. You weave a glove out of leaves. You fill it with bullet ants. You put your hand inside. You keep it there for 10 minutes. You do not make a sound. Then you do it again, 20 times, over months. The bullet ant earns its name from the people who've been stung by it. The pain is described as a full-body burning wave, equivalent to being struck by a bullet, lasting up to 24 hours per sting. A single ant. The glove contains hundreds. Boys who want to be considered men, and therefore marriageable, must complete all 20 sessions. The neurological effects of repeated venom exposure cause trembling and temporary loss of coordination that can last for days after each round. The community watches the entire time. The boy must hold it together. Breaking down is not an option if he wants to be taken seriously. What's actually being tested here isn't just endurance. It's pain tolerance combined with nervous system resilience, self-regulation under extreme stress, and the composure to perform in front of everyone. These are genuinely predictive traits for someone who will need to hunt, protect, and provide for decades. It's brutal. It's also not entirely irrational. From maximum pain to maximum beauty, our next entry is about a culture that decided the most attractive thing a man can do involves weeks of training and a face full of ceremonial paint. Number 17. Scotland's blackening of the bride. Scotland has many proud traditions. Whiskey, bagpipes, a deeply dark sense of humor about suffering. All three collide in one of the most aggressively unromantic pre-wedding rituals in the Western world. The blackening of the bride, practiced primarily in rural Scotland, particularly Aberdeenshire, works like this. Friends and family ambush the bride without warning, sometimes days before the wedding. They cover her entirely in a mixture of whatever foul substances are available. Flour, soot, mud, fish guts, treacle, feathers, rotten eggs, sauces. Everything, all at once. She is then paraded through town, sometimes tied to a tree, sometimes driven around on the back of a truck for hours. Strangers participate. Local shops come out to contribute additional materials. The groom gets it too. Both parties covered in equal horror. No one is spared. The worse, the better. The theory behind it varies. One interpretation: marriage is hard, messy, and humbling. This is preparation. If you can endure public humiliation together and still want to go through with it, you're ready. Another: the ordeal wards off misfortune. Evil spirits prefer cleaner targets. A third interpretation, held by most people who've actually participated: it's extremely funny. The deeper social function is real though. The couple's willingness to endure it, to take it with grace and humor, signals their character to everyone watching. You're not just choosing a partner. You're announcing yourself as a couple to your entire community, covered in fish guts, and you're completely fine with it. That's actually a solid compatibility test. Number 16. The Himba Red Ochre Ritual, Namibia. The Himba people of northern Namibia have one of the most visually striking beauty rituals in the world. Himba women cover their skin and hair daily in ochre, a paste of butterfat and red ochre pigment found in local earth. The result is a deep red-orange tint across their entire bodies and hair, creating an appearance that's made Himba women among the most photographed people on Earth. What most outsiders miss is how rigorously functional this ritual is as a courtship signal. Ochre serves as sunscreen and insect repellent in a harsh desert environment. But more importantly, the quality of its daily application tells a story. A woman who is impeccably maintained has the time, the support network, and the personal discipline to execute a demanding ritual every single day. A Himba woman who looks neglected is broadcasting something is wrong. One who is flawlessly maintained is broadcasting the opposite. She is healthy, supported, and disciplined. The ochre is also deeply communal. Women apply it to each other. The woman who is best maintained is almost always the woman who is most connected. It's a daily broadcast of fitness and social standing, encoded in red pigment, transmitted in plain sight, evaluated by everyone at once. Number 15, Japan's White Day. On Valentine's Day in Japan, women give chocolate to men, not the other way around. Women select, purchase, wrap, and present chocolates to men they're interested in, or, in the case of girichoko, obligation chocolate, to co-workers they feel socially required to acknowledge. That alone is a fascinating inversion of the Western norm. But the ritual has a second act. March 14th is White Day. Men who receive chocolate are now expected to reciprocate. The social expectation, codified enough that it borders on law in Japanese office culture, is that men return a gift worth roughly 2 to 3 times the value of what they received. The ratio has a name, sanbai gaishi, 3 times return. Receive handmade chocolate that took 3 hours to prepare. Return something meaningful and expensive. Receive a convenient store box. Return decent candy. The woman's investment sets the floor for what he owes, and everyone who gave chocolate is now waiting to see what comes back. A generous White Day return says one thing. Cheap marshmallows say something else entirely. No response is the loudest signal of all. It's a 2-month courtship ritual disguised as a confectionery calendar event. The Japanese chocolate industry is doing the Lord's work. Number 14. Haka as courtship. Maori, New Zealand. Most people know the haka from international rugby matches. What most people don't know is that the haka was never originally designed for rugby. The haka is a traditional Maori performance with multiple variations, used for welcoming guests, challenging enemies, mourning the dead, and crucially, courtship. The version performed in romantic contexts isn't the stomping, chest-beating display you've seen at sports events. It's considerably more complex. A man who could perform the haka with genuine power, the correct footwork, the pukana, the wide eyes and extended tongue, the voice, the rhythm, was demonstrating cultural knowledge, physical control, and lineage pride that went far beyond strength alone. But here's what most people miss entirely. The haka has a woman's response. The poi, rhythmic swinging of weighted balls on cords, requires the same level of precision and years of practice. A woman who could match a man's haka with her poi was signaling something specific. She was his equal in discipline and cultural depth. It wasn't a performance for an audience. It was proof exchanged between two people in real time without words. Number 13. The Fulani Cattle Inspection, West Africa. Among the Fulani people of West Africa, cattle are not just livestock. They are currency, status, biography, and proof of character. A man's herd is the most direct indicator of his worth as a provider. And when a Fulani man seeks to marry, he doesn't just ask. He is audited. His cattle management record is reviewed by a council of elders. The herd is evaluated for size and condition. The number required as bride wealth is negotiated based on both families' standing and the man's track record. Then, at the wedding itself, the cattle are walked out, counted, and inspected publicly. Every member of the community sees exactly what the groom brought. A strong showing earns real respect. A weak showing is remembered for years. Most cultures perform the mate quality assessment in private gossip. The Fulani do it in broad daylight with 4-legged receipts. It's honest, brutal, and unlike almost every modern courtship ritual, it's very difficult to fake. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this, smash that like button right now. It genuinely helps the algorithm reach more people who'd love this stuff. Back to the countdown. Number 12. The courtship letters of Victorian England. In the 19th century, the upper and middle classes of Victorian England developed what might be the most elaborately regulated courtship system in Western history. Compared to it, modern dating is pure anarchy. To pursue a woman, a man first had to be formally introduced by a mutual acquaintance. Random approach was deeply improper. Without a vouched introduction, there was no conversation. Full stop. If something developed through supervised parlor visits, chaperone present, 40 minutes maximum, unsupervised contact impossible, correspondence began. The courtship letter was its own art form. Eloquent, formal, layered with coded meaning, both parties were trained to decode. Too direct was improper. Too vague was cowardly. The letter had to signal genuine interest while respecting the form precisely. A woman who wanted to encourage a suitor responded promptly and warmly within the codes. A woman who wanted to end it responded formally, briefly, or arranged to be perpetually unavailable. Every stage left a paper trail. Every move was witnessed, documented, interpreted by the social network around both parties. The Victorians created the most suffocating courtship system in Western history. They also created the most honest one, because nothing could be hidden. Every signal was legible. Every decision was permanent. The paper trail never lies. Number 11. Scarification as commitment signal. Dinka, South Sudan. Among the Dinka people of South Sudan, a man's body is his resume. The specific pattern of raised scars across the forehead isn't decoration. It's a social document. It indicates tribal affiliation, age cohort, and most critically, whether a man has completed his rite of passage. A man who hasn't undergone scarification has not crossed into manhood. He is not a candidate for marriage. The scars are the credential. Without them, the conversation doesn't start. What makes the Dinka system genuinely fascinating is what happens next. The bride wealth, measured in cattle, often 20 to 40 animals, doesn't come from the man alone. It comes from his entire social network. Brothers, uncles, cousins, clan members all contribute, and the woman's family is obligated to return a portion if the marriage fails. The scarification proves personal commitment. The cattle prove collective backing. Together they answer the deepest question any family asks before agreeing to a union. Is this man actually supported by real people who believe in him? It's not a transaction. It's a contract underwritten by 50 people and several dozen cows. Number 10. The Thaipusam Kavadis vow, Tamil Hindu communities, Malaysia/Singapore. Thaipusam, observed by Tamil Hindu communities across South and Southeast Asia, is one of the most visually arresting festivals on Earth. Devotees carry elaborate structures called kavadi, massive ornamental frameworks attached to their bodies via metal skewers through their skin, cheeks, and tongue. Some are suspended by hooks through the back. Bearers walk barefoot for kilometers through midday heat without food, in a state of sustained meditative focus. The connection to courtship isn't incidental. Young men who make a sacred vow to Lord Murugan for healing, for success, or for guidance in finding a worthy life partner fulfill that vow publicly and physically at Thaipusam. In Tamil marriage culture, where family approval, devotional character, and community standing are central to how partners are selected, completing Thaipusam carries real social weight. A man who has fulfilled such a vow, especially multiple times, is signaling something specific and legible. He keeps commitments under the hardest possible conditions. He is embedded in his community's spiritual life, and he has the mental endurance to suffer for something he believes in. The signal is addressed to God first. The community reads it second. Potential partners' families read it third, and none of them miss the point. Number 9. The Love Hut, Krayong, Cambodia. Here is a courtship system so rational, it almost seems radical. The Krayong people of northeastern Cambodia have a tradition where parents build a small private hut adjacent to the family home when their daughter comes of age. This hut is hers entirely. Every evening, she can invite any young man she's interested in to visit. He comes, they talk, he leaves by morning. Nothing is arranged, nothing is forced. She controls who enters and who is invited back.
If I want to sleep with a boy, I'll ask about his background. If he's a lazy boy or a bad boy, then I won't invite him. If he is a good, handsome, industrious boy, then I might decide to sleep with him.
She makes every decision without parental interference. They built the hut specifically to give her that autonomy. This continues until she finds someone she wants to commit to. Then they marry. If it doesn't work out, divorce carries no social stigma. Anthropologists studying the Kriyong consistently report the same finding. Divorce rates are remarkably low. Women who chose freely, with real time to actually know a person before committing, tend to choose well. Men who were genuinely chosen, rather than assigned, tend to act accordingly. The Kriyong hut is the most structurally sensible courtship system on this entire list, which is probably why, in the global mainstream, almost no one has heard of it. We prefer the fish guts, the bullet ants, the elaborate chaos. Maybe that's the actual ritual, the absurdity itself. Number 8. The App Swipe, Global 2012 to present. Let's talk about the ritual that now governs the courtship behavior of approximately 350 million humans worldwide. You open an application. You are presented with a photograph and between 0 and 400 words of self-description. You have approximately 3 seconds. You move your thumb one direction or another. This determines whether two humans will ever interact. The swipe-based dating app launched in 2012. Within a decade, it had fundamentally restructured how a significant portion of the global population meets romantic partners. Roughly 40% of couples in the United States now report meeting online. Among same-gender couples, that number exceeds 60%. Here's what makes this genuinely fascinating and genuinely disturbing. In every other system on this list, the community observes both parties. Character is evaluated over time. Multiple signals, social, financial, behavioral, physical, are assessed together. In the swipe ritual, a single photograph, chosen by the subject, taken in optimal lighting, is the primary data point. Studies find that decisions are made in under a second, based on a very narrow cluster of visual signals. Then there's the algorithm, which is not neutral. Dating apps are optimized for engagement, not for successful relationships. An app where everyone finds their person immediately and deletes the app is a dead business. An app where everyone keeps swiping is thriving. The dominant human courtship ritual of the 21st century is partly engineered to not resolve. The anglerfish fused himself to his partner permanently. We gave ours a 3-second window and a thumb swipe. Evolution is ongoing. Number 7. The courtship flute of the Tsimane, Bolivia. Among the Tsimane people of the Bolivian Amazon, a young man who wants to signal interest does something specific. He learns to play the flute, not as a general skill. For her, he crafts or acquires a small flute and plays it outside her home, often at night, often repeatedly over days or weeks. The songs are either traditional melodies, which signal cultural knowledge, or original compositions, which signal something more personal. The woman and her family hear it. They know exactly what it means. If she's uninterested, she ignores it. He eventually stops. If she's interested, she signals by appearing, by responding, by allowing his visits to continue. The ability to play well signals cognitive ability, patience, emotional intelligence, and genuine persistence. A man who keeps showing up and keeps playing better is demonstrating a great deal about himself without saying a single direct word. The terrible flute players self-select out quickly. Only the determined and the genuinely skilled stick around. In an era of unsolicited messages and to you up texts, the Tsimane flute ritual seems almost impossibly civilized. Number 6. The walking partnership of the Mosuo, China. The Mosuo people of Yunnan province in southwestern China have developed one of the most structurally unusual relationship systems in the world. One that Western researchers, when they first encountered it, repeatedly misunderstood and mislabeled. The Mosuo practice taizis, walking back and forth. A woman controls her private room in her family home. If she's interested in a man, she gives him a signal. He may visit at night. He must leave by morning. He is never a permanent resident of her home. She is never a resident of his. Children belong entirely to the mother's household, raised by her, her brothers, her mother, her sisters. The biological father has no formal parental role, though he may remain involved if both parties want it. There is no dowry, no bride wealth, no legal contract. A woman's stability comes from her family, not from a partner. The result: women are never financially dependent on a relationship to survive. Partnerships last only as long as both parties genuinely want them. Children are never caught in a fractured household because the household was always the mother's family to begin with. Western researchers initially assumed this system must be chaotic. What they found instead was stable family structures, exceptionally low rates of domestic conflict, and women who reported high relationship satisfaction. The Mosuo didn't build a utopia. They built a different set of trade-offs. But they solved several problems that most societies are still fighting over in legislation. Number 5. The crocodile scarification of the Sepik River, Papua New Guinea. We're back to pain, but on a different scale. In Sepik River communities of Papua New Guinea, young men who want to be considered eligible undergo a scarification ritual that takes weeks and leaves permanent, extensive raised scarring across the chest, back, and sometimes the arms and face. The scars are designed to resemble crocodile scales. The crocodile is the most sacred creature in Sepik cosmology, a being that dominates its environment completely, that has survived unchanged for millions of years, that embodies ancestral power and masculine endurance. The process is long. The skin is cut repeatedly. The wounds are managed carefully to produce the characteristic raised keloid texture. The young man is watched throughout by the community. He cannot show distress. He cannot falter. When it's done, he is recognized as a man. Women will now consider him. But what gets evaluated isn't just the willingness to endure. It's the result. The evenness of the scarring, the definition, the aesthetic precision all matter. A beautifully executed scarification is genuinely admired. A poorly done one reflects on the man and the practitioners together. He is wearing his credentials on his body, permanently, for every person he will ever meet to read at a glance. Number 4. The Hamar Bull Jump, Ethiopia. The Hamar people of Ethiopia's Omo Valley have a coming-of-age ceremony called the Ukuli Bula, the Bull Jump, and it is one of the most studied initiation rituals in anthropology. In function, it's simultaneously a manhood test, a community event, a spiritual ritual, and a declaration of marriage eligibility, all at once. Here is how it works. A young man who wants to become marriageable must run across the backs of a line of cattle, 10 to 15 animals, standing flank to flank. He must complete 4 passes without falling. Fall once, and he is not ready. He goes home and waits for next season. Before he runs, something else happens. The women of his family, his sisters, cousins, female relatives, approach the male guests and demand to be struck with ceremonial switches. Not symbolically, actually struck hard enough to leave marks that scar. They do this voluntarily, loudly, joyfully. The women sing while it happens. Why? Because the marks prove loyalty. A woman who carries visible scars from her kinsman's ceremony has permanent proof that she stood for him publicly, that she endured for him, that she is a woman of the community. These marks are worn with genuine pride and considered a form of beauty. The man who crosses the cattle is witnessed by everyone. The women who bore marks for him are witnessed by everyone. It is a public, communal act of mutual commitment, where everyone's stake is written on their body. After the jump, he is a man. He may now be considered for partnership. The community has already seen what kind of person he is, and what kind of women stand behind him. Number 3. The Saturnalia lottery of ancient Rome. We opened with Lupercalia. Let's return to Rome for something that makes it look modest. Saturnalia, held every December, was the most beloved festival in Rome, a week of feasting, gift-giving, the deliberate inversion of social hierarchy, and general excess. Slaves dined with masters. Normal rules dissolved, and embedded in all of it was a courtship lottery that operated by one principle. For 1 week, the usual barriers don't apply. Young Romans participated in drawings that paired them with partners for the festival. Unlike Lupercalia's fertility focus, Saturnalia pairings were broadly social. They could remain purely festive or develop into something with real emotional weight, depending entirely on what both parties chose to do with the arrangement. The critical element? The suspension of class hierarchy. A working-class man might be drawn with a patrician woman. Under normal Roman social structure, impossible. Under Saturnalia, temporarily legitimate. Some of these pairings outlasted the festival. When they did, they created serious complications. Roman law around cross-class relationships was unforgiving. But the festival created the encounter that would never otherwise have happened. It was a deliberately engineered collision of people who were never supposed to meet. The Romans understood something most rigid social structures ignore. If you seal every crack completely, the pressure builds until something breaks. The Saturnalia lottery was Rome's pressure valve, 1 week per year, where the architecture of hierarchy was officially suspended, and something genuinely unpredictable could happen. They were not wrong that it was necessary. Number 2. The Dani finger mourning rite, Indonesia. This one requires context, because without it, it looks like something it isn't. With it, it becomes one of the most profound things on this list. The Dani people of the Papua Highlands of Indonesia practice, or historically practiced, a mourning ritual directly connected to the depth of a marital bond. When a woman's husband died, she was expected to demonstrate the magnitude of that loss in a permanent, physical way. She removed a joint, specifically the upper portion of a finger, cut near the knuckle while in the acute state of grief, using a stone tool. Sometimes multiple joints across multiple losses over a lifetime. Older Dani women in historical photographs show hands with numerous shortened fingers, a visible, permanent record of every significant bond they had carried and lost. The dominant interpretation from within the Dani community itself, the physical pain of the ritual, equalizes the inner and outer experience of loss. The body should reflect what the soul is carrying. You do not simply walk away from a death and resume your life unchanged. You are changed. The alteration should be visible. What this created, in terms of the partnership itself, was a social system where commitment was total, witnessed, and permanent. A woman's hands told her entire relational history to anyone who looked. Her loyalty was not claimed in words. It was written in her body and visible for life. The practice was suppressed through the mid-20th century by outside authorities and has largely ended. But older women with shortened fingers still live in the highlands today. Their hands are the most honest records of devotion you will ever see. Number 1. The Chambri 2 World System, Papua New Guinea. At number 1, we return to Papua New Guinea, because apparently, if you want the absolute extreme edge of human courtship complexity, that's where you go. The Chambri people of the East Sepik province have a social structure genuinely rare in global context. It is matrilineal. Descent traces through the mother's line. Women own property. Women control the primary trade networks. Women hold significant social authority. This is not a small detail. It shapes everything about how courtship works. When a woman decides she wants to enter a union, she and her family do the selecting. The man is evaluated, not primarily on physical strength or material wealth, but on his ceremonial credentials, his scarification, his mastery of ritual knowledge, his standing within the men's ceremonial house, which is the central institution of Chambri male social life. The men's ceremonial house is where the crocodile scarification is performed, where ancestral ritual knowledge is held and transmitted, where a man's worth is established before the eyes of other men. A man who is not engaged seriously with the ceremonial house is not a credible candidate for partnership. There is no shortcut. Here is the element that earns this the top position. The scarification inside the ceremonial house is performed under conditions of complete secrecy from women. Women know it happens. They are explicitly not permitted to witness it. When a man emerges, his scars are the only evidence of what occurred inside. The woman's family then evaluates the result. They assess the quality and extent of the scarification. They consider his ceremonial standing, his relationships within the house, the senior men who vouch for him. And then, the woman decides. She is making the final selection based on credentials she was never permitted to watch being earned. He proved himself entirely to other men. She judges the proof. And she chooses. It is a courtship system built on two parallel worlds, one entirely internal to men, one where women hold final authority, that never directly overlap but are completely dependent on each other. Each world validates the other. Neither functions without the other. And together, they produce the most elaborate, socially layered mate selection process on this entire list. It has functioned, without interruption, for as long as anyone in the Chambri can remember. Two worlds, one choice, and the choice is hers. 17,000 years of agriculture, complex language, space telescopes, the internet, and we are still at every level running the same core program. Find the person who proves they're worth it and commit. The methods are different. The pain levels vary considerably. Some of them involve fish guts, some involve bullet ants, and some involve an algorithm engineered to keep you swiping indefinitely. But the underlying drive to signal, to evaluate, to choose, to bond hasn't changed since the first Homo sapiens looked across a fire at someone and thought, maybe that one. We didn't leave the animal kingdom. We just built a much more complicated cage inside it. If you made it to the end, thank you. Drop a comment with a ritual that surprised you most. And if you're new here, subscribe, because we do this every week. And next time, it's going to be even stranger.